Hello and thank you for joining us this evening for the results of Winchester Student Union's Officer Elections 2021. My name is Tiff Burnett, I am the Union Student Engagement Manager and I'm also the Deputy Returning Officer for the elections. Firstly, a huge thank you to everyone who voted in this year's elections. Our voting turnout was 23.48%, which means that 1,947 students voted, which we're pleased to say is the highest voter turnout we've seen since records began on our website. It truly was a record-breaking election on several fronts, with also the highest number of sabbatical officer candidates here at Winchester since records began as well. Before we find out the results, I just wanted to take a moment to congratulate all 20 candidates who ran in this year's elections. You have all truly done a fantastic job running in a virtual election from home, in lockdown, in a global pandemic, and you should all be so proud of what you have achieved regardless of the results this evening. So for the results, I'll be reading these out in the order of student officers, Vice President Activities, Vice President Education and Welfare, and finally President. A reminder that we use the single transferable voting system for our elections, which allows voters to rank candidates in order of preference. As such, each election has a quota which needs to be met, and often there are various stages of each election where votes are transferred. In the election of student officer, the number of votes cast was 1,664. There are 5 vacancies and the quota to be elected was 20% of the valid votes cast. Therefore, the quota for this position was 277.33. In the election of student officer, there were 8 candidates: Emily Jane Aldridge Snell, Charlotte Baker, Sophie Bourne, Stuart Evans, Aaron Eugene Abwehe, Darren Pattis, Chloe Robbins and RON, which stands for Reopen Nominations. In Stage 1, Emily Jane Aldridge Snell received 220 first preference votes, Charlotte Baker received 363 first preference votes, Sophie Bourne received 153 first preference votes, Stuart Evans received 143 first preference votes, Aaron Eugene Abwehe received 491 first preference votes, Darren Pattis received 54 first preference votes, Chloe Robbins received 206 first preference votes, and Ron received 34 first preference votes. In Stage 1, Aaron Eugene Abwehe and Charlotte Baker both met quota and have therefore been duly elected. As 3 other seats were still available in the election, and as no further candidates reached quota, Aaron Eugene Abwehe and Charlotte Baker's surplus votes above quota were transferred to next established preferences. For Aaron Eugene Abwehe's surplus transfers, Emily Jane Aldridge Snell received 42.24 transfers for a total of 262.24 votes. Sophie Bourne received 57.6 transfers for a total of 210.6 votes. Stuart Evans received 37.44 transfers for a total of 180.44 votes. Darren Pattis received 15.36 transfers for a total of 69.36 votes. Chloe Robbins received 56.64 transfers for a total of 262.64 votes. And Ron received 288 transfers for a total of 36.88 votes. No candidate reached quota after Aaron Eugene Abwehe's surplus transfers, so we move to Charlotte Baker's surplus transfers. For these, Emily Jane Aldridge Snell received 26.52 transfers for a total of 288.76 votes. Sophie Bourne received 17.16 transfers for a total of 227.76 votes. Stuart Evans received 11.96 transfers for a total of 192.4 votes. Darren Pattis received 0.52 transfers for a total of 69.88 votes. Chloe Robbins received 28.08 votes, transfers for a total of 290.72 votes. Ron received 1.04 transfers for a total of 37.92 votes. Emily Jane Aldridge Snell and Chloe Robbins both met quota and therefore are duly elected. After these candidates are elected, quota was reduced to 240.2. As one further seat is available in this election and as no further candidates reached quota, Emily Jane Aldridge Snell and Chloe Robbins' votes above quota were transferred to next established preferences. From these transfers, Sophie Bourne received 15.8 transfers for a total of 243.56 votes. Stuart Evans received 17.72 transfers for a total of 210.12 votes. Darren Pattis received 0 transfers for a total of 69.88 votes, and Ron received 0 transfers for a total of 37.92 votes. Sophie Bourne met quota and has therefore been duly elected. As no further seats remain, I can confirm that Aaron Eugenia Buehe, Charlotte Baker, Emily Jane Aldridge Snell, Chloe Robbins and Sophie Bourne have been duly elected as your student officers for 2021-2022. In the election of Vice President activities, the number of votes cast was 1,718. There is one vacancy and the quota to be elected was 50% of the valid votes cast. Therefore, the quota for this position was 859. In the election of Vice President activities, there were 8 candidates: Leela Bajida, Joshua Dodd, Bob Glass, Daniel Hepburn, Kate Marden, Daphne Siddall, Lee Fairwhite and Ron. In Stage 1, Leela Bajida received 259 first preference votes. Joshua Dodd received 169 first preference votes. Bob Glass received 163 first preference votes. Daniel Hepburn received 456 first preference votes. Kate Marden received 154 first preference votes. Daphne Siddall received 260 first preference votes. Lee Fairwhite received 233 first preference votes. And Ron received 24 first preference votes. As no candidate reached quota, the candidates with the fewest votes were eliminated, which were Ron and Kate Marden, and their next preference votes were transferred. Quota was reduced to 810. In transfer stage 1, Leela Bajida received 8 transfers for a total of 267 votes. Joshua Dodd received 12 transfers for a total of 181 votes. Bob Glass received 7 transfers for a total of 170 votes. Daniel Hepburn received 8 transfers for a total of 464 votes. Daphne Siddall received 28 transfers for a total of 288 votes. Lee Fairwhite received 16 transfers for a total of 249 votes. As quota was still not met, the candidate with the next fewest votes was eliminated, which was Bob Glass, and their next preference votes were transferred. Quota was reduced to 765. In transfer stage 2, Leela Bajida received 21 transfers for a total of 288 votes. Joshua Dodd received 18 transfers for a total of 199 votes. Daniel Hepburn received 19 transfers for a total of 483 votes. Daphne Siddall received 17 transfers for a total of 305 votes. And Lee Fairwhite received 6 transfers for a total of 255 votes. As quota was still not met, the candidate with the next fewest votes was eliminated, which was Joshua Dodd, and their next preference votes were transferred. Quota was reduced to 719. In transfer stage 3, Leela Bajida received 29 transfers for a total of 317 votes. Daniel Hepburn received 23 transfers for a total of 506 votes. Daphne Siddall received 28 transfers for a total of 333 votes. Lee Fairwhite received 26 transfers for a total of 281 votes. As quota was still not met, the candidate with the next fewest votes was eliminated, which was Lee Fairwhite, and their next preference votes were transferred. Quota was reduced to 637. In transfer stage 4, Leela Bajida received 36 transfers for a total of 353 votes. Daniel Hepburn received 29 transfers for a total of 535 votes. Daphne Siddall received 53 transfers for a total of 386 votes. As quota was still not met, the candidate with the next fewest votes was eliminated, which was Leela Bajida, and their next preference votes were transferred. Quota was reduced to 555. In transfer stage 4, Daniel Hepburn received 71 transfers for a total of 606 votes. Daphne Siddall received 118 transfers for a total of 504 votes. Quota was then met, and I can confirm that Daniel Hepburn has been duly elected as your Vice President Activities 2021 to 2022. In the election of Vice President Education and Welfare, the number of votes cast was 1,759. There is one vacancy, and the quota to be elected was 50% of the valid votes cast. Therefore, the quota for this position was 648. In the election of Vice President Education and Welfare, there were 5 candidates: Dan Chevalier, Jessica Errington, Phoebe Meads, Grace Nash-Williams, and Ron. In stage 1, Dan Chevalier received 493 first preference votes. Jessica Errington received 425 first preference votes. Phoebe Meads received 349 first preference votes. Grace Nash-Williams received 461 first preference votes. Ron received 31 first preference votes. And as no candidate reached quota, the candidates with the fewest votes were eliminated, which were Ron and Phoebe Meads, and their next preference votes were transferred. In transfer stage 1, Dan Chevalier received 74 transfers for a total of 567. Jessica Errington received 43 transfers for a total of 468. Grace Nash-Williams received 78 transfers for a total of 539. As quota was still not met, the candidate with the next fewest votes was eliminated, which was Jessica Errington, and their next preference votes were transferred. In transfer stage 2, Dan Chevalier received 100 transfers for a total of 667. Grace Nash-Williams received 89 transfers for a total of 628. Quota was then met, and I can confirm that Dan Chevalier has been duly elected as your Vice President Education and Welfare 2021 to 2022. In the election of President, the number of votes cast was 1,894. There is one vacancy, and the quota to be elected was 50% of the valid votes cast. Therefore, the quota for this position was 947. In the election of President, there were 3 candidates: Daniel Holt, Caris McCobb, and Ron. In stage 1, Daniel Holt received 723 first preference votes. Caris McCobb received 1,123 first preference votes. Ron received 48 first preference votes. As quota was met, I can confirm that Caris McCobb has been duly elected as your President 2021 to 2022. All officers elect will formally take office on the 1st of July 2021, and that brings us to a close for Winchester Student Union's Officer Elections 2021. Congratulations to all our candidates for running in this year's elections. Thank you so much for watching, and stay safe.